Dear God, please give me the courage to get my testimony out and let it speak to the wonderful people that I have met here and have yet to meet here. I pray that my testimony will give encouragement to others going through similar things, and that by the grace of you, we all get through our struggles together. Amen. I apologize in advance if I have lack of eye contact. I have a fear of speaking in front of crowds. All right. I am a grateful believer in God. I have been recovering from smoking weed and mental health issues. I've been diagnosed with anxiety, depression, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, and I've been on the cusp of PTSD. And I'm also in recovery for self-harm. My name is Alex. I was born in 1999 in a somewhat Christian home. Both my parents were non-believers, as well as my sister, but my grandparents on my mom's side were heavy believers. I'm the youngest of two, older sister, and I grew up mostly in Aurora with my parents. Sorry. But after my parents' divorce, I was constantly moving between Aurora and Richmond Hill with my grandparents. My grandparents shoved Christianity down my throat growing up, making me go to church even if I was puking that morning. They would wash my mouth out with soap for small things like shut up, or I would get hit with a wooden spoon or a leather belt. There were multiple times I would want to be alone because of my mental health, and I would be bombarded with words from the Bible, something else with Christianity. It got to the point I honestly stopped believing for the longest time because of how badly I was being treated by everybody around me and hearing certain things at the churches that I went to. I was constantly bullied by other kids for being the tall, lanky kid, which led to many fights and trips down to the office and school. As mentioned, my parents' divorce, that happened when I was 10. And I didn't figure out why until a year later when my sister told me that my dad had cheated on my mother with somebody from England. Due to other issues in school and with paying attention and getting my work done, my principal suggested to my parents that I get checked for ADHD. At 10 years old, I was finally able to be diagnosed with ADHD, but I also had the diagnosis of depression and anxiety along with it. Shortly after the diagnosis, my parents announced that they were getting a divorce. Being 10 years old, I thought I was the reason behind it, being the problem child, which led to the first time I would end up self-harming and my first suicide attempt. After the divorce, my mom started dating a series of alcoholics who were horrible towards my family. The first one physically abused my mother and I, and sexually assaulted my sister while I was out of the house. Sorry. This led to me starting to smoke weed in order to cope with what he was doing with my family. Later on, I would begin to start leaving the house in the middle of the night, give or take midnight, 2 a.m. sometimes, and starting to go to parties or hanging out with high school kids and smoking weed with them. There was one other incident with this first boyfriend that led to my second of 7 attempts of suicide. There were times where a boyfriend would lead my family to getting evicted, causing us to move in with my grandparents. Other boyfriends were abusive towards my family, both physically and verbally. And through all of these boyfriends my mom went through while I was living with her, I was constantly hurting myself in various methods: cutting, burning, punching myself, headbutting to the brink of a concussion, as well as stabbing. I started drinking myself as well, and I ended up dabbling in other drugs like MDMA, acid, and shrooms. School life in high school wasn't the best either. The bullying continued by students, but this time around, I was also being bullied by teachers. One of my teachers wanted me permanently removed from the class for going around and helping other students while she was busy. Going from being bullied in school to being abused physically and mentally at home every day of the week led to attempts number 3 through 5. Attempts number 6 and 7 came due to relationships I was in through the years. 80% of the relationships I was in, I was abused and I was cheated on, which made me feel like I was a completely useless human. If my mother didn't love me enough to stop the abuse from her boyfriends, the teachers and students wouldn't stop bullying me, and my girlfriends didn't love me enough to be honest with me and not cheat, what was the point on going on with life? In 2023, I had another mental breakdown to the point I wanted to harm myself again and end myself. Due to the stress in my life and financially and emotionally. And on January 20th, 2024, my dad took me to the hospital because I wasn't getting any better, and he knew I wouldn't take myself due to the hatred of hospitals. I was nervous the entire time about being admitted, and when the nurse told me to change into a gown, it was getting worse. Eventually, they ended up bringing in a wheelchair to bring me up for the psych evaluation, and I blacked out and threatened to start a fight if I heard the words of admission, which led to 6 security guards coming to escort me with the nurses. A nurse came in after hearing the commotion and told me I wouldn't be admitted, but that the gown and the wheelchair were policy. In the psych evaluation, I was diagnosed with the borderline personality, depression, anxiety, ADHD, bipolar, and being very susceptible to PTSD. Because I show some signs when it comes to doctors, police, and relationships. I came to CR because I felt like it was my last hope dealing with my issues. I tried everything else before, and it didn't work. So now I have to go to God to teach me how, because I can't do it myself. And I want to thank Matt for bringing me here. Stepping through these doors and immediately being welcomed with open arms, no judgment, and the support of people have given me through the years, had brought my belief back to God. The people I have met, the lessons I have learned, the testimony from others who have the courage to stand up here on the stage and share their stories of recovering had made me truly feel for the first time in my life that I am not alone and that God has truly been there with me the entire time, yelling at me with every attempt I tried that it wasn't my time. I have to keep going because He has a plan. I attended step study last year, and going into that, I didn't know what to expect. I thought, in all honesty, I was going to get nothing out of it, but it was worth a try. Step study helped me figure out my patterns, which led me down the broken roads I kept choosing. The guys sharing their sides around me made me take in more information on how I can deal with my issues and take care of myself better than I was before. Looking back at it now versus how I was before, I never thought in my life I'd make it this far. But God and CR has shown me that I truly can. And even though I ignored Him back then, He forgave me and showed me His path. He gave me a new family here, and He gave me the courage to stand up here and share my testimony with all of you. God has done more in my life than I had ever realized before, but with the help here I have received, it opened my eyes to everything, and He has provided me in the past. I chose the wrong path back then, but He showed me that there really is calm, clear waters after the storm. I'm happy to announce that because of Him and everybody here, I am over a year clean of smoking weed. I haven't touched harder drugs again, and I am almost 2 years clean of self-harm. A little side note, last weekend, not this most recent one, but the weekend before, I became very suicidal. It got to the point where every thought in my head about relapsing came up, and every thought of ending it again came up. I was on a walk alone, and I had the temptation to step in front of traffic. But then I remembered that God had a plan, and it stopped me right in my tracks. I went home, and I talked to my roommate instead of going through with any of those demonic thoughts. Thank you all.